Hi and welcome to this post-social podcast presented by Oliver Thomas Wilcox. Today's guest is Amy Laurence, content creator with the Miss Kick Foundation. During the podcast we discuss her passion for the sport, including a podcast series she does around the Liverpool women's football team. We also talk about the Miss Kick Foundation and what they offer. Before we start, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and check the description for our webpage, Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn. Okay, so thank you very much for agreeing to be here today. How are you?
I'm good. The sun is shining. It's fantastic. How are you?
Not bad. Not where I am. I can't see any sun at the moment.
Oh.
So before we go into the questions, would you like to give a quick brief summary of yourself, so what you do, what your interests are?
Yeah. So my name is Amy. Obviously, you'll all know that. I used to run all of the content and social media at Miss Kick. Only left at the end of May. So it's been a bit of a quick turnaround. But in terms of what I do in particular, is creating all the content that is seen across all of the Miss Kick and used to be the Miss Kick Foundation as well channels. So whether that's video, graphic, relatable content, reels, TikToks, all that sort of thing. Also then heavily involved with the planning, scheduling, then executing, and then delivery. So very much from the beginning to the end process. As well as that, you're very much involved with like the campaign planning, so looking at photo shoots, videography, how we can puzzle that all together to sort of release the clothing and the different drops that we have. So that's kind of like what I used to do at Miss Kick in a nutshell. And then alongside this, actually run a podcast myself with one of my good friends. So still relating to football, quite an avid Liverpool fan, so follow Liverpool Women. So run a weekly podcast over there, go to all of the football games, get post-match content from the managers, players, just really active across social media on that front, because as most people know, be watching this who have a bit of an interest in women's football, it's not always that accessible. So being able to provide that accessibility for people that maybe can't get to the game or want to hear a little bit more from the players that they don't get to see, like interviews on Sky Sports. So we just kind of show it and it's free for everyone to watch. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, I guess.
Right. So going back to football, obviously it's the main kind of topic for this week. When did you first pick up a passion for the sport?
So I've always played football. My dad used to play football for Bradford City, so when he was younger. So I guess I kind of always like grew up within the football sort of realm. My brother used to play as well. So naturally, like when you're growing up in the back garden, like kicking the ball around with my brother, and just kind of fell in love with it. I started playing when I was really young, about 5 or 6, and only recently stopped playing because of injury. But that's sort of how I sort of began in football, and then used to play for a boys team when I was little, which I loved. The competitiveness of not just playing against boys in the team, but like even on the school field, just absolutely megging them and they don't know what's happening. It was great. But then obviously switched to a girls team when it was needed, and my dad actually used to be the coach, so I had a really good sort of experience within that. It really taught me like how I can improve as a player and as a person as well, because I used to joint captain the team, which was great, and I loved doing that. And then as I got older, I've moved around quite a bit, so just jumped from team to team, experienced loads of different teams, loads of different environments, and met loads of amazing players. And I think anyone who'll know about football agree, like the friends that you meet at football are just completely different to any other friends that you have. It's like a unique bond that you get. So obviously really loved playing football, and still would love to still play. Unfortunately can't do as much anymore, but yeah, it's been a massive part of my life growing up, and it still obviously is now.
So when you were younger, was there a lot of women's teams you were able to join, or did you find that a bit of a challenge?
So I was always really lucky. I was able to find a team, and I think for me it was more like I was so passionate about it and really wanted to be involved in it that I would do whatever it takes to go and find a team, whether that would be like the only team in the town that I was in or having to travel a little bit further. Like, I was always really, really wanting to go and do that. I definitely think when I was little, there wasn't as many teams as there were boys teams. You used to see boys teams everywhere, just driving past a pitch and it would be full of boys teams and no girls teams. So I definitely think there was like a lack of girls teams available, but for me, because I just wanted to do it, I was willing to find like anywhere, even if it was a terrible team. I was like, it's fine, I'm still playing, I've still got a team, I can still roll up on a Saturday or a Sunday and play. But when I look at what girls have now, there's so many more opportunities and accessibility to be able to go and play that. There's still a gap, don't get me wrong, but they have, when you see now, it isn't just the boys on the field. Like, you see a couple of girls teams mixed in within there, which when I was younger I would have absolutely have loved. But I'd still say I was really lucky with the teams I've played for.
So going back to what you said earlier, you can't play as much these days. Is that injury related or work related?
Injury related, yeah. So in 2018 I was playing at university football, and just an off the ball movement, and I ended up tearing my ACL. So obviously went through a whole year and a bit of rehab, and then in lockdown again, when I finally got back to doing pre-season training, because I was joining a new team back home, ruptured my meniscus again. So that required another surgery. So at this point I was like, I don't think the luck is behind me anymore. I think the glory days might be over. So ended up maybe taking a bit of a back seat. Then I actually joined Miss Kick, and obviously anyone who knows Miss Kick knows that absolutely busy 24/7. So it's become a bit of a time thing as well. But don't get me wrong, if I still could, I probably would. And hopefully one day when he decides to not be made of glass, I may be able to return. Fingers crossed.
I'm very sorry to hear about the injuries there. It's very unfortunate. I mean, know a lot of people that have torn ACLs and then struggle to get back in.
I wouldn't wish that pain upon anyone. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before. I've never had any injuries throughout my whole career, and then had two of like the biggest ones. So I was quite unlucky, but still love football. It's a love-hate relationship, I think, in that sense.
Well, one day you might get back
hates
to your
me.
best, so.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
So you mentioned you played university football as well. Where did you go to university?
So I went to Liverpool John Moores University, and obviously the choice for doing that was I love Liverpool like the city, and then John Moores was always really quite renowned for its sport, and I obviously did sport and exercise science while I was there, which was a really quite highly regarded course, like at the time that I was picking to go to uni. So went there, and like the first thing when I got to uni, I was like, when are football tryouts? When is it? I'm gonna go, I'm gonna try and meet people. And joined the team, and unfortunately only managed to have one full season there, because obviously halfway through the second season ended up getting my injury. But yeah, loved university football is great, not just the social side, but just like the competitiveness, able to go and like travel and go different universities and play. It was great.
So obviously with your injury that happened, afterwards, did you have you had any like other jobs within football to keep yourself like linked with the sport?
Yeah, so obviously at the time I was still in uni, so wasn't necessarily looking for a full-time job, but that's where I sort of fell into the video-y podcasting type side of things. So I ended up volunteering and becoming an intern at a fan-based channel. So that's where I picked up all of production skills, video editing skills, very basic obviously, but that's where I kind of elevated it a little bit more. So that was really heavily involved in football still, which was obviously like a priority for me. And then obviously after that, did that for, well, I'm still doing it now, but I did that properly like for 2 or 3 years maybe. And then obviously lockdown happened, went back home, struggled a little bit to stay in touch with it, because obviously you can't really film when you're however many miles away. And then Miss Kit came along, so has very much always been involved in like the football space, regardless of whether that's playing it or working in it.
Right. So going into the Miss Kick Foundation a bit more. So could you just give us a summary of like what it is and what it offers?
The foundation or the brand or both?
We can do both. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of like the Miss Kick brand, obviously was set up by Grace, who played football herself, for like sort of City and Liverpool, which I'm very jealous of, by the way. That would have been fantastic. And obviously it was set up with the stance that there just wasn't anything like it for females in football. In terms of the kit never used to fit. It always used to be like the leftover kit from the boys and just smell and was awful. So obviously that's where Miss Kick was sort of built on, and now we're able to provide girls playing football that were just like me when I was little, playing in boys kit, with kit that actually fits them and is actually made for them rather than them being an afterthought. So that's kind of the basis of Miss Kick, and within that, what we try and do, and specifically from what I was doing while I was there, is looking at how we can tell different stories of different people, as well as providing the brand side of it, raising awareness on the other side. So can we go and visit a footballer who owns a coffee shop? Yes, we can, because we can then highlight the football side of it, and we can also help them grow their own business. Or can we go to a tournament and speak to the girls and inspire them to keep doing what they're doing and stay involved in football? And we could do that. And with me, I can go along and film that and sort of then show that to the rest of the community. So we really push hard to try and elevate women's football in pretty much any way that we can, whether that is, as I said, the apparel or in the content that we make, which is obviously my priority for while I was there. And then the foundation is such an amazing aspect, because a proportion of the sales that we make through the brand go to the foundation, and their prime outcome is to provide more opportunities for girls within football, whether that's through facility or engagement or anything like that. The foundation really has a clear drive on what it wants to do and how it's going to do it. And I guess through, if anyone's been following them specifically, there's across like social media, you'll see the people that we've partnered with, like Form Soccer School. We went down and hosted a game day for all the girls to come down and get involved in football and meet Grace, meet Nikki, the CEO, and really understand what Miss Kick is, but also enjoy like football on the day. And I think the foundation is going to play a huge part in the upcoming Euros in terms of doing the ambassador program with Middlesex FA, getting people out into schools, into different training groups, and sort of spreading the word of what we do, and also just keeping girls involved in sport. I think it's the biggest thing. That's why the foundation is just so essential. But yeah, that's kind of a bit of an overview of both of them.
Thank you very much for that. Sounds like very good work the Miss Kick does. So yeah. Going more into your kind of work, so you obviously do podcasts. Could you go into like how you first started and what was like inspiration behind doing them? Yeah,
sure. So me and my friend Lauren, who is both met when I was at university, who didn't go to my uni, but we met through the fan channel that we both were interning at. We were just like doing all the men's games, and we were like, this is great, we're giving so much coverage to the men's, but like, who's doing the women's team? Like, no one else chose to take a step in that direction and follow the women's team. And we were like, well, why not? they're just as relevant as the men's team, and they deserve to be given even more of a platform than they already have. So we were like, yeah, we're going to do it. So what started as a little idea almost 4 years ago now has now turned into something that we didn't really imagine. And we didn't think people would want to sit and listen to me and her talk about football for 20-30 minutes every week, but people do, and we've built such a great community. And as I sort of mentioned earlier, we're able to sort of bridge that gap between the fans and the manager and the players. So every single game we get to speak to the manager about how his thoughts on the game were, looking forward to the next match, any injury updates, which you just don't get in the men's game. Everyone and his dog knows who the players are injured for, how long they're out for, when they're coming back, what game's next. But in the women's game, it just doesn't happen. So we sort of took it upon ourselves to, obviously, particularly Liverpool, look towards them and see how can we make this better. And I feel like we've been able to do that to an extent. I think there's so much more that we could do. Obviously, time and work is such an issue, but that's sort of how it started and where we're at. But yeah, it's great, and it's something that for me is just a bit of a switch off. So like I finished the day at work, and I'm like, oh, let's go and do this. Like I love going and doing it. I love chatting about it. I love going to the game. So it's nice to have like alongside.
Well, you've probably definitely had a lot to talk about on the podcast because they've just been promoted, haven't they?
They have. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, I've got a flatmate who won't stop going on about it. So.
So great. We actually, me and Lauren actually were invited to go to something where the trophy was. So there's a picture of me and her both lifting the trophy. It was fantastic. It's heavy. I didn't expect it to be that heavy, but that was a pretty unreal moment. Yeah.
Sound it, yeah. So obviously with you being a massive fan of football and also being linked in with a lot of women's football, could you talk about what kind of growth you've seen over women's football in recent years?
Yeah, it's hard to sum up, really. I feel like even if you look 2 years ago or whenever the Barclays cash flow was interjected into the women's game, especially the WSL, it's grown leaps and bounds. I mean, you have to look at just the way that it's portrayed in the media. It's just taken so much more professionally. I mean, you're seeing at least 2 or 3 games on the major Sky Sports channels every weekend. The social media channels have grown. I think the WSL Twitter channel reached like 10K in such a short period of time, which just says to me that the market's there and it's just getting people to convert across. I mean, women's football was banned for God knows how long, 50, 100 years. And the fact that we're still playing catch up now is just baffling to me. But I definitely think we can get there one day. And you just look at the professionalism now. It's the way the players train. The WSL only went full time just over 10 years ago. So all the teams in WSL are now full time, which is fantastic. And then in the championship, the tier below, you're slowly starting to see teams go full time. I mean, some of the players still have 2 jobs, do you know what I mean? So obviously there's still a bit of a way to go, but especially in the last 10 years since the last World Cup, I definitely think there's been such a step in the right direction. There's still work to be done, but I definitely think like the persona and the narrative around it is changing. It's not just like, oh, women's football is awful. It's like, oh, I'll watch it, I'll try it. If I don't like it, that sounds. But we're just converting that one more person every time. Hopefully will lead to it just going up and up and up, which is obviously what we all want to see.
Well, it definitely is with the upcoming Euros as well, and also big matches in the Champions League. I know that the Barcelona-Madrid game that got over.
Yeah.
Was it over 80,000? I'm not sure what the figure is, but yeah, that was insane.
Just selling out stadiums is something that I didn't think that we'd see. I mean, obviously, when you look to the Euros, all of the England games have been sold out. The finals been sold out, like everything like that. You probably wouldn't have got that before the last World Cup. So the fact that it's growing in that way, I think it's like clear to see. And even like women's football players are becoming like household names now. I mean, like Lucy Bronze, Lexa, I can't never pronounce the name, Pulitas or whatever, who plays for Barcelona, who just won the Ballon d'Or last year. Like, people know who these people are now. And as long as those awards keep happening and we're showcasing the right kind of people, I don't see why it won't skyrocket even further.
Right, so coming to the end of the podcast, one final question. What would your advice be to young women in football who are looking to maybe start a career in it?
My advice would be you have to love it. You have to love football and you have to want to learn. I mean, we've had girls in our office that didn't necessarily know too much about football but wanted to learn, and that's what you have to do in order to understand how it works. It's very easy to go and talk about football from a men's angle, but women's football is so much more different. You need to have that bit of understanding, and you've also got to have a little bit of thick skin. It's tough being a woman in such a male-dominated sport, and you'll know about it sometimes, because sometimes your opinion can be invalidated just because you're not a male and it's seen as a male sport. But as long as you love it and want to do it, there's absolutely no reason why you can't. I think for me, what really helped me is just growing a network of people around me who were in the women's football space, because sometimes that can be your way in, and you can learn so much from those people in order to then go on and use that to go and get a job or continue working towards getting a job. So yeah, just network. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to, I mean, you think you nag people, but you're not. You're wanting to find out stuff for you that works. And I've made so many good friends within women's football that, first of all, I sort of spoke to get a bit of an understanding of how I can get to the place that I am at. But equally now they've become really, really good friends of mine. So obviously don't be afraid to ask, to reach out. And yeah, just working hard. It is a hard sport to work in. But there's so many different things you can do now, whether you do what I do, you create content for it, or you're a social media manager, or even you go and you being a physio or a coach. There's like so many different ways you can go around it. So there's no lack of things to be doing. It's just you've got to really want to do it and have the determination to put yourself out there and progress on and push for what you want to do.
Very good advice, agreed there. So yeah, thank you very much for agreeing to be here today. It's been great hearing from you. And
thanks for having me.
No worries. We'll make sure to get everyone to listen to your podcast now. So
fantastic. Come and listen to us talk about the Reds.
Maybe not the Reds, but you know. But yeah, again, thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day.
Cheers. Thank you.